Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guests, Ethan Barhydt, Caroline Hodges, and Dr. Miles Beckett, and they're here to share with us AI teammates. So how is AI revolutionizing the workplace and transforming industries by working alongside humans to enhance performance? Well, today's guests are here to share with us just that. So this year, AI teammates will officially join the workforce, fundamentally transforming how companies operate and succeed. We're joined today by Ethan Barhydt, Voiceops CEO and founder, Caroline Hodges, co-founder of Dimmer Health, and Dr. Miles Beckett, who leads Flossy. So welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Well, what an honor it is to have all of you here. My goodness, I've got so many questions. This is so exciting. Well, why don't we start with you, Dr. Miles? We're seeing AI become an integral part of many workplaces. How do you think this partnership between humans and AI differ from previous technology advances in the workplace?
Sure. I think there's some similarities, there's some differences. Whenever there's a new technology that enters the workforce, people worry about their jobs. People wonder whether they can adapt. Can they work with it? Is it going to replace some of the functions? So I think there's some similarities there. AI, at least the newest form of generative AI, is at least different in the sense that it's really creating content. And a huge part of white collar work has been content creation across various categories, whether that's creating spreadsheets or data or photos or text or code. I think the difference here is that it's really hitting knowledge workers much harder than in previous technology waves.
So, Ethan, there are often concerns about AI replacing jobs, and I know Miles mentioned that a little bit ago. With this combination, what mindset do you think that we need people to have to embrace AI as a collaborative tool?
Yeah, I know there can be a lot of AI anxiety about, is it going to replace my job? Do I need to worry? Is my job at risk? We're seeing actually that AI seems to just be making jobs more fun and allow people to get more leverage out of their day. What seems to be happening is it's almost like you're going to get AI coworkers, and those coworkers are going to do all the stuff that you always complained about or didn't want to have to do in the first place. And you're going to be left with the stuff that are things like where human relationships really matter, or where you need to do really deep thinking or dig deeply with someone into their performance. And a lot of the tasks that people would rather not do, they're not going to have to do anymore. So I think the best advice is to just start like working with AI tools and kind of get a feel for it. And the more you can just sort of embrace it and see it as like a really cool tool that's going to make your life better, the more you'll actually just kind of amaze people at work, because people are like, whoa, how'd you get all that done? You'd be like, oh, you pretend like it was just you're a really fast typer or something, but actually you've got AI in the background helping you be really effective.
And to kind of dovetail with this, Caroline, do you think that it's really people's mindset shift in knowing that AI is there as a tool that we can utilize, and to really start incorporating that more so in our daily work? I think a lot of people too also use it for interactions with other folks, because that seems almost to be a lost art in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there is a real fear about being replaced by AI, or even having the purity of interactions being replaced by AI. And what we do, we do patient care, we do virtual visits, and we use AI to really help enhance that visit. But fundamentally, what is allowed is for the doctor, the PA, the nurse practitioner to have much more pure interactions with the patients that they're connecting with through their visit, so they're not distracted by trying to type in the chart, or double check something on the internet, or in the patient's history, or it's a much more pure interaction. It really helps with efficiency and helps really prevent patients fall through the cracks. It actually provides like a layer of a safety net, and so the provider can focus on the patient and then not miss anything, and also catch things that might otherwise have been missed.
We know how taxed providers are right now just in time. So what a great resource that is to be able to have this to be able to be utilized.
For sure. Yeah, and really keeping it so personal. I mean, when you're talking about your health, and you're so vulnerable with someone, you really want that connection to be pure, like you said.
So Miles, what surprised you the most about human employees adapting to working alongside AI systems?
Yeah, so at Flossy, we build AI agents for dental practices. We started out with a AI receptionist, voice agent, and it's been surprising to see how much they treat the agent like a human. So, especially when they talk about them, but we call her Fiona, and they'll say like, "Oh, Fiona's awesome," and like she was answering calls and she did so great, and I heard some of the recordings, and the way she handled this conversation with the patient was really amazing. So the fact that already people are talking about these agents as if they are a human coworker has probably been the most surprising thing to me.
Well, that's kind of interesting. It gives them that personal touch. You think maybe when they're doing that kind of connection, they're feeling like, hey, I'm talking to a person when it's not really a person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean we've actually embraced that metaphor across our products where, you can actually do a one-on-one with Fiona either via chat or audio to provide feedback, and that feedback will get incorporated into the model and change the way she behaves going forward. So we're really kind of leaning into this whole metaphor of the AI agents being coworkers or humans that you can interact with in the ways that you're familiar with.
No, that is just fascinating. So McKinsey predicts AI will add trillions in value this year alone. Beyond the numbers, what really changes are you seeing in how people approach their work when they have AI support?
I can speak to how we're using it in our healthcare model. And we're using it in ways that I think many people would think. Like we're using it for writing notes, we're using it for making sure medication reconciliation is done safely. We're using it to summarize a visit and generate care plans for patients. But we're also able to use it in a much deeper way to help recognize patterns to identify risk for patients. So, for example, if we do post acute care and we follow patients until they're back to their baseline or back to their primary care team, and we can recognize patterns that might put a patient at higher risk for a complication based on how they respond to certain things. And the AI helps us identify those and helps us properly risk stratify and care plan for those patients. So it will alert us, alert the clinician. It also we'll use it for data extraction, so we can pull from multiple sources. It compiles it to one place so that everything that's needed is right there in front of the clinical provider. So they're not looking in multiple different locations for information about the person that they're speaking to or taking care of, and they're not spending a lot of time looking for things. And so I think efficiency is the biggest thing. That efficiency and safety, both in healthcare, are two things that are huge financial drains. I could definitely see both of those areas benefiting greatly from the use of AI. And I really, in health systems that we talk to and payers that we talk to, they are all really focused on how can we bring that in-house, indoors, to really do better for people and to cut costs.
And if I could jump in, I think one of the amazing impacts, we build AI coworkers for sales and marketing teams that it can listen in on every customer interaction. So let's say you have maybe millions of these customer interactions happening a month, and businesses want to do the best they can for their customers, but to date, there's just never been a way to understand like what's going on in all this data. And I think one of the really amazing things is that when you have an AI that can see trends that no human could see, all of a sudden you can really listen to your customers and you can act on what they're telling you, and you can go serve your customers better. So I think we're going to see businesses be able to serve their customers really by listening more carefully to the voice of the customer, because finally there are tools to be able to make your way through all that data and find trends that a human really wouldn't have the time to look for, and even if they did, they probably wouldn't be able to make sense of the data the way that a machine can. um we also found that we have an AI sales coach, so it can like figure out, hey, this rep, we noticed they're really struggling with handling this particular customer complaint or objection. And the AI can actually go find that pattern and then go coach the rep directly. One of the things that surprised us is reps actually want to take feedback from an AI because there's some psychological safety in it where, they don't have to worry about frustrating their manager or sounding defensive or like, oh, my manager's booked till next Thursday. There's something that feels really safe about talking with an AI where you can ask 20 questions about your performance and that AI is like infinitely patient with you. And so I think that, customers will be better served, but also employees will be better served in that they'll be able to get all the help that they need, all the learning that they want, all the coaching that they want, because they'll have an AI by their side that's always there to help them.
And that all happens real time?
Yeah, that's there for them all the time. So they can say, hey, I'm really struggling today. And they ask, okay, well, let's look at your last 10 calls or your last 100 calls, or hey, let's look at the trend over the last 3 months. I know you feel like you're struggling, but actually look how much progress you've made on this thing that you were struggling with a month ago. And it's just always there for you.
I agree with you, Ethan. I mean, the area that we've seen a lot of interesting developments is around voice. I mean, again, we launched with this voice agent. And I think that, these LLMs, they're extremely good at predicting, the next thing in a sequence, whether that's like a word or whether that's a sequence of numbers or whatever it might be. They're like highly sophisticated predictive engines, which is kind of simple. But when you actually think about that in a more generalizable form, they create all these powerful types of technologies that we see right now. And I think voice is just a big unlock for that. Or systems where, like, with Operator, that OpenAI launched, where you can let the AI now browse your computer. So I think as we're seeing them plug into existing systems, it's going to be pretty cool. Like, we almost think about every single interaction through the lens of, well, what if we just had an AI call? Like, if you have an AI that costs effectively zero and can make millions of phone calls, what does that look like? And it almost becomes like an API for the real world is kind of how we've been thinking about it. Like, we have a product we're working on that'll do insurance verification and some other insurance stuff for dental practices. And part of that will be an AI that just calls the insurance company rather than having a human do it. I mean, there should be an API anyway. There sort of is with some of them. There's data issues, et cetera. But so I think thinking about how these technologies work unlocks a lot of creativity, at least for us on the product side. And I think it will for customers as well.
So, Ethan, I understand with Voiceops, you've seen a 42% increase in conversion rates. Can you walk us through a typical day of a sales rep working with your AI teammate and how it helps them achieve these results?
Yeah, of course. So imagine a rep is having a tough day where they maybe, a rep might have to take 100 phone calls a day, and maybe they're just having a tough day. No one seems to be wanting to talk with them, or they're getting a lot of pricing objections, or people saying, I'm not ready to buy. And that's tough on a sales rep because they are paid on commission. So they can actually, if you think sort of Chat GPT style, they can talk to this bot that is almost their sidekick and is reviewing all their calls in real time. And they can start to say, hey, I'm having a hard time today. And then the AI can say, well, let's look at the last 10 calls. It looks like the way that you're trying to overcome this objection on the call isn't working. And then it will actually go search other teammates of this rep for examples of other strategies to try to overcome that objection and give some ideas to the rep. Say, hey, on the next call, why don't you try this instead? And then the rep can go try it and then come back and check in. So it really is there kind of to help them along the way. And then, this information also is available to that rep's manager so that the manager, when they start their day, they are able to see, okay, here's exactly how my reps are doing, where they're struggling, and who I need to work with today, because the AI is bringing all that information right to them. And so everyone's just in this kind of like continuous learning mode all the time because they have the information at their fingertips. And turns out when you do that, sales reps want to learn. They're hungry for information, and really they want to perform. Like, these are usually very competitive people. So when you give them the access to great resources and great piece of feedback, they'll take it. They'll take it all day. And so it's pretty amazing. We started with just thinking we were going to do analytics, and we kind of stumbled into this idea or this realization that, oh my God, people want to actually just talk with the AI and get feedback. And then you watch conversion rates go up very, very quickly, because once people know their issues, they'll fix them because they want to make more money. So
Is that what you're seeing with Voiceops? Is that people are really using this as an education piece where maybe they're not getting trained with their manager in the past, or they're not getting the information they need on a certain product?
yeah, exactly. And it's not that their managers are negligent or bad managers or anything like that. It's just simply that managers themselves are really busy and running around and putting out fires. And so we think of this as basically taking the manager's expertise and putting it in the pocket of every sales rep. And in fact, when we train these AI models, we do it collaboratively with the management or the managers. So they're actually putting their own expertise into these models. And so it really is like your manager is sitting next to you all day, because those models reflect the expertise of the best managers on your team.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Ethan Barhydt, Caroline Hodges, and Dr. Miles Beckett in regards to AI and the future of work. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed, and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guests, Ethan Barhydt, Caroline Hodges, and Dr. Miles Beckett in regards to AI and the future of work. So, Caroline Hodges, I'd love to talk with you about Dimmer Health. I understand that you're a 2-time cancer survivor yourself. How has your personal experience influenced the way you've designed AI to work alongside healthcare providers?
So I guess I do have this unique perspective of being both a patient and a clinician. And, many years in the system, I worked clinically in the ER and in leadership. And I think if you talk to anybody, we all know that patients come back and have this feeling like if only we had done this for them sooner, we could have caught this before it got so out of hand. And I think right now we have this issue where patients go from being in the hospital where everything is done for them. 100% of decisions are made, when to take your meds, when to walk, when to eat, what to eat. Everything is done for them. And then when they go home, it's all on their shoulders and on their caregiver's shoulders. And patients don't necessarily know what to do. When they reach out and they need help or they want follow-up, they're reaching out into a system where primary care doctors are overburdened, schedules are full. It's hard to get through on call lines, and and patients just don't do well. And there's a shortage of staff. And so I thought this almost seems like a silly problem to fix, but let's figure out how we can provide real-time care to these patients during this super vulnerable time that's continuous, interactive, proactive, and like deeply compassionate and dynamic, and use the technology that's out there and really AI to help support our own clinicians that are caring for these patients and the decisions that are made, and recognizing when patients need that intervention. And so that's essentially what we're doing now. And I think in healthcare, we probably all have stories of things that were wonderful, but things that also could have been better. For me, when my health got complicated and I started having a lot of medical teams that were participating in my care, it wasn't that I didn't have great teams. It was that they might be in different health systems and they weren't all talking to each other. And I had to be the conduit for all that information. And what happens is people get older and more complicated, that communication doesn't always occur and things slip through the cracks. We see patients with the same medicine or the same class of medication prescribed by two different doctors, and they're taking both and having side effects. And so really, we wanted to build something where we use the technology and AI to help recognize some of these errors, some of these patterns, and some of these issues early on before they become an issue that the patient has to go back to the hospital for or have to get readmitted for.
Thank goodness we live in the time that we do. And I understand that your system has achieved 68% reduction in hospital readmission. Congratulations. That's a huge number. Can you share us? Yeah, what a big deal that is. I mean, can you share a story with us on how AI has been able to catch something that might have otherwise been missed?
Yeah, I have like so many good stories. I love these stories because this really translates to people doing better. But I think a real simple one that we have is we see a lot of post-surgical patients, and we have a virtual visit with them right away. And when we see them, we establish a risk stratification for that patient. And based on that risk level, we have a certain type and cadence of interactions with those patients. But we have lots of check-ins that are automated. And based on the patient's responses, we can sort of dial up or dial down the intensity of the care that we're giving them. Some examples are they reaching out and with the same complaint more than once, or a certain number of time and frequency. Another one is we'll have patients reply, I'm feeling more tired today than I was yesterday. And then we can dial up and then continue reaching to that patient, pushing. And based on their responses, we can either escalate their care, get them in for another visit. And the AI helps us triage that so we know what the patient needs. We've had an example like that where we were able to capture an infection early and then get the patient on, some blood work done on the patient, get the patient on antibiotics, intervene early before they had to go back to the hospital. We've had a lot of stories like that. It's really cool.
So healthcare workers often face major burnout from just doing, the administrative tasks. How does AI partner with clinicians to help them focus more on patient care while ensuring nothing falls through the cracks?
Well, I think the biggest thing really is allowing them to focus on the patient so they can really have that purity of that interaction, that connection. I think one of the biggest things, and Ethan, you mentioned this, that really being customer centric, or in our world, it's patient centric. The patients, they reply to us like, I feel seen. I didn't know healthcare could be like this. I've never had such peace of mind. Like these are feedback that we get in the surveys that we send to patients. And I think it's really just the ability for the providers, we don't measure patients per hour, which is a metric it's often measured in healthcare. We allocate a certain amount of time for the clinician to be with the patient, and we want them to be with the patient the whole time. Like, I want you to know the dog's name, and I want you to know like everything about this person, so that when we continue to interact with them, it's very personal to them. And so we have these really very deep, intimate connections with our patients in their homes. The virtual visit is a glimpse into their home, and the AI really allows that provider to not be looking at multiple screens, to not be typing while they're talking, to really just sit and see that person. And it's really beautiful.
So, Miles, I heard about something and I was floored. I understand that over at Flossy, Fiona, the AI receptionist, has passed the dental boards. Is that right?
Yeah, she has passed the dental boards.
So, with this in mind, what made you decide to set such a high bar for your AI knowledge level? And how does this expertise translate to better patient care?
Yeah, so we've been in the dental industry for a few years now. We started out building a marketplace matching patients with dentists and helping them save money at the dentist. And patients can still book with a dentist through Flossy. But in the process of doing that, about a year and a half ago, we got super excited about the opportunity and potential of AI. And so we had a ton of clinical data. So we have, tens of thousands of patient visits, all the symptoms, all the treatments, et cetera. And so we were able to use that data to train an AI model. And initially, we were using that to really just better match patients with a dentist and to answer questions that they had and give them a diagnosis, so that not a technical diagnosis, but an assessment. And practically speaking, I mean, effectively was like a diagnosis, although we weren't calling it one. And that made it easier to match them to the right type of dentist and to answer questions they might have about their procedure, and also give them more accurate pricing. So we had done that, and then we just broadly got super interested in AI and AI agents, and we decided to launch this first product, this voice receptionist. And so the clinical stuff was already there. Interestingly, it turns out to be pretty helpful for a voice receptionist. A large amount of the calls are scheduling related. It's about 70-80% of the calls. But even for the calls that are scheduling related, there's often questions that the patient may have. We have a lot of practices in the pediatric setting, and in particular, patients are nervous about their child, and they might say like, oh, it's their first visit, and what's it going to be like, and what's your office like, and if they have to get a procedure done or a root canal, what would that be like? And so being able to answer those clinical questions, at least the way a receptionist would, kind of like on a high level, is super helpful. We obviously don't use it in a diagnostic capacity, but it has been really helpful to be part of the product.
Well, even a dental receptionist will have a very good understanding of what happens within that dental office. So to have Fiona be able to kind of field those calls and then, help with placement as far as appointments, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, she is very capable at having those sorts of conversations. And to what Ethan said earlier, what we found is it really frees up the time of that individual in the office who normally would be answering calls. I mean, dental offices are typically pretty short staffed. 75% of dental practices have staffing challenges. There's a lot of turnover, particularly with front desk staff. And oftentimes the person answering the phones, has a clinical background. They might be a dental tech or a hygienist, sometimes even, and they're just answering the call. And so what we found is that by taking this burden of answering phone calls, scheduling patients, et cetera, doing rescheduling, handling, people calling in and saying they're late. I mean, she does all of this. It really allows the person that's in the office to either focus on clinical care or at a minimum, just be there for the patients that are actually there in person.
So, with this in mind, how is Fiona helping independent practices compete with larger dental organizations while maintaining that personal touch?
Yeah, I think this has been really cool to see. There's obviously been a bit of consolidation in the dental industry with these larger DSO organizations that either will build from scratch or buy dental practices and kind of roll them up. If you have some amount of scale, you can consolidate your call operations into a call center. So you'll see DSOs with maybe 50 locations, 100 locations or more, where there's a call center that's actually fielding all the calls. Sometimes they might even offshore that. And in particular, if you're offshoring, you can get a decent amount of savings relative to just the ad hoc cost of having somebody answer the phone. So for individual practices, this is a total game changer. I mean, Fiona is, a tenth the cost of a human employee. She's still dramatically cheaper than offshoring, and she speaks, hundreds of languages. Like, can talk, is available 24/7. So, but we've also found that it's helpful for the DSOs too, because if you're running a call center, there's always more efficiency to be gained. But yeah, definitely for the small practices. And as we think about more agents that we're building, we really think about this as like a holistic suite for dental practices. And again, I think even more so for an individual small practice, they're not going to be able to take 5 different software products and stitch them together in some way. They can barely handle IT for their email. So, having like a one-stop shop, I think is also, pretty helpful for them as well.
What type of feedback are you getting from small practices?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I would say they're raving. Like, the feedback has been really good. I've started a few different tech companies and, been in this industry for a while now. And, like, usually you hear a lot of complaints, you take those complaints, you make the product better. And we certainly hear feedback where they're like, oh, this could be better, that could be better. But like, the feedback's really good. The practices are saying like, oh my God, this is amazing. Wow, she's answering so many more calls. I mean, also these practices, even during the day, about 30% of calls go unanswered. And in the evening and weekends, most practices do not have nights and weekends coverage for the phone. Usually it's just going to voicemail. And so for them, that's just a dead lead for them. So if that's a new patient, like, they're not getting that patient. So it's immediately ROI positive, and they're really, really happy and excited.
So, Ethan, why don't we start with you? Looking ahead, what new capabilities do you envision AI teams developing in the next few years?
Oh, great question. Well, I think that I think 2025 is the year of the AI coworker, in the sense that this is the first year you're going to really feel like you have an AI coworker. But the next few years is going to be like really figuring out, how do humans and AIs work together? I think that's like this big open question. It's going to be it's going to be different. The dynamic's going to be new. Like, nobody's designed a user experience where AIs and humans, or robots and humans, truly are like collaborating. So I think we're going to see there's going to be a lot of experimentation. We're going to try a lot of things that don't quite work. We're probably going to surprise ourselves, as an industry many times about, oh wow, this is the user interface that like really makes sense. And as Miles was saying, there'll be some combination of voice, but also, who knows? There's going to be maybe a bunch of different formats for how humans and AIs interact. But I think you'll start to have a different conception of what a workforce is, and that'll be really exciting. I think like one of the crazy things about AI right now is that it's moving so fast that it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. And so, one of the things that I think something that every company wants to do right now is stay on the frontier. Like, how do we make sure we're taking advantage of the latest and greatest model, the best intelligence at the cheapest price? And, as an AI startup, that's one of the things that I think like we always emphasize to our customers is like, we will make sure you're on the frontier, and we'll make sure to keep you there, and help you stay innovative, because it'll be essential for companies that want to like, there's kind of two paths for companies in the future: embrace AI and thrive, or experience a sort of withering if you don't like sort of embrace it. So we'll see. And I think there's going to be, these models are going to get more capable. Thing that AI probably won't do, at least in the next 5-10 years, is like replace the human relationship. So I think you're going to see businesses become very human relationship focused as AI takes off, takes all the receptionist calls and all the other work away. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think work's going to become really fun.
What advice would you give to business leaders who are just starting to think about incorporating AI teams into their workflow?
I think a lot of this just boils down to good product development to begin with. Like, what is the problem? What is the pain point? And how clearly can you define that? I think that that's a starting point. I would say there's a second approach, which might be a more creative or playful approach, which would be to just try tools that are out there, see what comes from them, particularly using the LLMs directly, whether it's Chat GPT or Cloud or something like that, because it may spur some creative thought around ideas or solutions that you didn't even know were possible. So I think you can kind of go down both paths, that path of more exploration, and then also just looking internally at, workflows that aren't efficient, or areas that are redundant, things that are repetitive, and trying to define your problem sets and then talk to companies that are in your space.
I'm sure many dental offices want to know how to connect with you, Miles. What website would be the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to flossy.com, FLOSSY.com.
Ethan, where can people go to learn more about Voiceops?
They can go to www.voiceops, that's VOICEOPS.com.
And where can people go to learn more about Dimmer Health?
Sure. www.dimerhealth.com.
Well, thank you all for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much.
lot. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Make sure to visit Voiceops at voiceops.com, Flossy at flossy.com, and Dimmer Health at dimmerhealth.com for more information on how these companies can move your business to the next level. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.